So now let's start our debate. We flipped a coin and Laura won the flip, so she will be going first. Each candidate will be given 5 minutes to introduce themselves, followed by a series of questions from our facilitator, Dan Shear, editor of the Green Valley News and the Sahuarita Sun. Each candidate will be he will be giving them a series of questions. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer those questions. And if they choose to have a rebuttal, then they will be giving a 1-minute rebuttal. Our timer is Arlene Ostrom down front. She has the green card, means the timer has started. Yellow card means please finish your sentence, and red card says please immediately stop. All questions from the audience will be in written form. You will be given a card when you came in. Please write them down and present them to put them in the box. Brian and I will go through there, trying to remove any duplicates or ones that are similar in nature, and then we will be giving those to Dan. And with that, I would invite Laura. Would you please start?
Yes. All right, so in theory, I might. Is it working? Am I mic'd? Good afternoon, Green Valley. Muy buenas tardes a todo el Valle Verde. A very good afternoon to a very green valley after all of our beautiful winter rain, Kano. I'm very, very pleased to be here with you. I'll begin in my first minute by saying that I'm happy to be here with you again. One of the main demands upon me 4 years ago when I ran was to be accessible, was to be open and transparent, was to continue the conversation throughout the 4 years. And as so many of you in this room know, and know me personally, I have been present in Green Valley. I have been with Santa Rita. I have been in Quail Creek. And I have been ever communicative and transparent and open to you. And I've been a lifelong Tucsonan and a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat. So many of you know me and have met me, actually stumping for other candidates, for paying it forward for these last 4 years at the state level and at the legislature, which I'll continue to do, rain or shine, after the primary. And then I'll take the next minute and talk about what we have been through together. The hardest of times, right? The hardest of times. I got to meet so many of you personally in those first 3 months that I had as a normal candidate, and I'm seeing so many shaking hands right now. As a normal candidate, actually with you, shaking hands, kissing babies, all of the things, right? And it lasted for about 3 months, and then COVID. We have been through so much together, and you have been behind me, and I'm here to thank you for all of your hard work that you have given to your community and to the party in the last 3.5 years. You have seen the Herculean task that I endeavored in as the new Pima County attorney at the height of COVID, pre-vaccine, in a violent crime spike that had started in 2020. And you watched me tackle it one step at a time. You watched me formulate a plan to get some 380 employees and 150 volunteers vaccinated. You saw me fight tooth and nail to raise their salaries for the first time since 1997. You saw me go after modernizing the office and taking us from a paper file system that was a bit burdensome during COVID and go on to an online case management system. You saw me tackle the violent crime spike to partner with my law enforcement partners to go after a massive homicide backlog and tackle it and catch up to live so that now Pima County is outperforming the rest of the state and nation recovering from that violent crime spike. I appreciate it. I'm a bit tired. I'll confess. The job of the Pima County attorney is vast. It's a 1.1 million county. And its top administrator of that county, I've done everything to steward it in the best way. And the kinds of folks who have joined us as attorneys and as administrators has opened the door to a new and better and healthier and safer community. I can't wait to approach the next 4 years together.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Jette. I want to thank you all for being here on a Saturday afternoon. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Arlene, too. And I want to appreciate thank you, Laura, for being here, too. I want to tell you something about myself before we get into some of the questions and answers. I come from a Marine Corps family, my mom and dad. My dad was 26 years in the Marine Corps, and that's where I learned duty to community and forward-leaning. My mom ran a mobile library van in some of the poorest areas of North Carolina. And so I understood what it's like to give back to my community. I'm a triplet, and one of them is profound. They're both born, we're all born. 2 were born with some serious illnesses. One profoundly deaf, and the other one stole my kidney. It was a big fight we had. But I learned early on that the race of life, people don't start at the same starting line. They don't. Some people have anchors, and some people have parachutes. And so I understand that living it. And so either based on where you grew up, your family, your race, your gender, your health, we all start from a different point. And that's the optic that I look at in every single defendant, every single case that I've prosecuted. I look at that case with that optic. I've been happily married for 19 years, and I'm happy to say it's kind of sappy, but she's my best friend. She's sitting right in the front row, or second row. And I've been in Tucson for 23 years. And before I get into my career, I want to tell you something about my community activism. I was the president of Tucson Clean and Beautiful for nearly 8 years. I was sat on the Tucson Museum of Art board. I was an advisor for the United Way Senior Coalition. I even coached for the Special Olympics. That's the community activist that I am, that I was taught by my parents, to give when you can. If you can, you should. And that's the mindset I have. Most of you probably know me as a prosecutor. I've been prosecuting for 17 years. I got my law degree in Portland. I have a master's in business from Thunderbird, with a focus on finance and management. And I've been prosecuting for 17 years, all cases from burglaries to murders to sex assault to white collar to public corruption. Every single case you can think of, I have stood in court and prosecuted that case. I worked in Santa Cruz County. I've worked as an assistant attorney general here at the Attorney General's office. And my career kept going up. I was proud to say I was a federal prosecutor at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And my capstone of my career was when the Department of Justice picked me to go overseas to train prosecutors overseas on the rule of law. I went to places like Pakistan, where my job was to set up prosecution offices, teach prosecutors, hire them, teach them, and mentor them. The largest office I set up was over 100 prosecutors. I got a broken jaw over there. I had to wear a vest, a bulletproof vest when I go to court. But it was a capstone of my career. When I came back, I was encouraged to bring this global perspective to Pima County, to run for Pima County Attorney. And that's what I'm doing. I think we deserve a little bit better. We deserve someone with the experience of 17 years. And I've got a vision. One, I think we all can agree on this, is I want to supercharge diversion. I want to put more and more people on diversion. I know there's probably a lot of golfers here in Green Valley, but I think a lot of people deserve mulligans, multiple mulligans, before they get incarcerated. I believe diversion is the way to go. Give them wraparound services. But at the same time, though, if you commit a dangerous, violent offense to somebody, you're going to have to be held responsible. You're going to have to be held responsible. And the third thing I want to address is the fentanyl epidemic. We've got an epidemic. We have people who are using it, they're dying from it, and they're doing other behavior. I want to give treatment. And then we have our traffickers who are distributing this poison, and they need to be held accountable. So once again, I welcome the questions from Dan. This is going to be an informative hour and a half, 2 hours, 3. I'm here as long as you have questions, and I appreciate it. And once again, I appreciate your opportunity to speak with you on the Saturday afternoon. So, thanks, Dan.
We'll go ahead and get started here. There were some topics that were important for the Green Valley Democrat group to be covered, and we're going to go after some of those first. The first is on the death penalty, and we're going to start with you, Ms. Conover. Where do you stand on the death penalty, and in what case would you find it justified?
The only way to get rid of the death penalty is to say no, is to have the backbone and the courage, and to shut it down. Full stop. That was the only way it was going to be possible. 4 years ago, I said it every single day on the campaign trail so that it was as transparent as humanly possible, so everyone knew exactly what they were voting for. Pima County had been overusing the death penalty at a shocking rate for far too long. And we have an Arizona statewide study from just a year and a half ago that shows that you cannot get race out of the equation. You cannot. It remains a racist, failed policy. Was it easy to shut it down? Absolutely not. I still had 2 cases pending at the time, and I had very sensitive, delicate meetings at the time. But the only way to make it permanent is to shut down all machinery so that it's completely gone. And as long as I am in office, it's over.
Well, I agree in concept. I'm not against the death penalty, but it's not hard. You simply don't charge it. You don't allege the death penalty. I think it's meted out arbitrarily. I think it costs us as taxpayers way too much money, so I'm against the death penalty. But it's easy to shut it down. You don't charge it. It's as simple as that. So I'm going to keep my answers brief and short.
Just to follow up on that, Christopher Clemens was just sentenced to his second life term. He killed a 14-year-old in 2014 and a 6-year-old in 2012. That would not rise to the level of a death penalty. Start with you, Ms. Conover. Just 1 minute.
I'm going to be cautious for his right to appeal, but what I can say in the public record is that was one of the open cases that was still open, charged as the death penalty, again, among so very many. It was handled very, very delicately. I made a promise when I arrived that any family who had lost a loved one in the criminal justice system had the right to speak to me personally if they wanted to. And I have had far too many of those meetings because of the backlog I inherited. And those were some of the most precious meetings on the Clemens case. We were able to arrive at a more resolute, permanent, definite solution in that case because we abandoned the death penalty.
Thank you. Mr. Jette, do you want to respond to that?
Sure. I think life without parole is a remedy that is doable for most of these defendants who commit violent acts against us all. However, I just want to correct the record. There was no backlog of cases. COVID shut down trials for all cases. The question is, what has happened to the homicide cases pending? We don't have conviction information. We don't have resolution information. We have no idea what the plea negotiations are. We've got 0. There was no backlog except for COVID shut down the criminal system, and that's the only backlog we're talking about.
I think we have a rebuttal opportunity.
Absolutely, go ahead.
I'm reminding Dan that there's a rebuttal opportunity. This is my life. This was my life as administrator. 144 homicides going back to 2017. It took my own staff many weeks before they fully admitted that we had not been running the homicide panel for a full year before I took office. And it was 144 homicides going back to 2017. Can you imagine those families? How long they waited? we started running the homicide panel every single Monday, and we've completely come out of that backlog, including the record that we had picked up in 2020 and 2021. And like all of Southern Arizona law enforcement, I am incredibly proud at the massive decline in violent crime year to year going forward now.
Thank you. Mr. Jette, we'll start with you on this one. This is involving guns. Ms. Conover was recently part of a group that called for tighter gun restrictions in the state, and this would include allowing local entities to enact policy on gun laws. Half of Arizonans own guns. How would giving local entities more power help? Or if you want to divert from that and present something else, that's fine.
Thank you, Dan. I'm not quite sure what it meant by local entities having more authority or power. However, I'm not chasing guns. I'm not taking people's guns away from them. What I am going to do is set up a prosecutor who's going to go after straw purchasers, people who buy guns for prohibited possessors, people who should not have guns. Those are what we call straw purchasers. I will do that. Number two, I will go after people who sell guns out of the back of their car, and they're in the business of selling guns to people that don't check on them. So those are two things that we need to focus in on. And so gun violence is a serious issue in Arizona. I'm not taking guns away. However, I am going to restrict who can sell those guns and what kind of proper mechanisms we have in place to assure that the person who buys the gun isn't buying it for a prohibited possessor.
I agree with Mr. Jette, especially when it comes to prohibited possessors. We have a 90 to 92% charge rate, which is astronomically high when it comes to cases that are brought to the Pima County Attorney's Office on prohibited possessor, the unlawful possession after a felony conviction. And there's a reason for that, right? It's a felony record and its possession. You know, these aren't hard cases to prosecute, and so we do so righteously in collaboration with law enforcement. I'll go a step further. I do think there are those whose guns should be taken away 100%, and it's the red flag law that I myself have drafted that I'm going to continue fighting for as I continue to fight to flip the legislature so that we can have a red flag law and join the majority of the rest of the nation where in due process, with full notice and full fairness and an opportunity in court, we're going to go after those who are an obvious risk of harm to themselves and others and should absolutely not be in possession of a firearm. And I'm going to continue that fight until my last breath.
And that's admirable, but before we do that, how about the county attorney's office prosecute the backlog of domestic violence, serious domestic violence cases that are plaguing this community. 304, you're shaking your head, I appreciate it. 304 cases, felony DV cases, were pushed down to misdemeanor, to city court, city attorney's office. 304 last year. 304 cases where stabbing, strangulations were pushed down into city court for prosecution. How about we start with those crimes? Instead of focusing on red flags, how about we focus on the crimes against persons, crimes against people, the focus we should have as a county attorney.
Okay, on to abortion. We will start with you, Ms. Conover. The 1864 abortion law is still on the books in Arizona, though the state house has voted to repeal it. The Senate, we know, gets a crack at it next week. If it remains in place, however, would you prosecute if presented a case against an abortion health care provider?
Okay. All right, so let's back up just a little bit to the macro. So why not tackle everything in my first 2 years in office? Why not tackle everything? The reproductive health case came back down to Pima County Superior Court to a protection that was protecting reproductive health care statewide. So I just want to make that clear. I had to switch sides and then take on then Attorney General Brnovich to fight for reproductive health care statewide. We lost at the trial court, and then we immediately got a stay in the Court of Appeals. And to this day, that's still the statewide protection that's in place providing reproductive health care now. I'm very proud that reproductive health care stayed open in Southern Arizona throughout all of this. We're remanded now back to the trial court for an evidentiary hearing until the people have their say in November. Never say never. Never say never. A prosecutor waits for facts and circumstances to come to them, and then they do the right thing. And I've given examples. Let's say we go back to the near complete ban. Let's say we go back to 1864, God forbid, and we're back in the world that some of you absolutely remember and how dangerous that was. A provider holds himself out as experienced and can take care of the problem and then injures or even kills a woman fraudulently. Bring me that case. Don't ever say never. That's wise, right? But a certified provider providing reproductive health care, obviously, I'm never going to use precious resources. And neither are my partners in law enforcement in Southern Arizona, which is what Southern Arizona has relied upon.
Well, obviously, this is a very important issue for all of us in Arizona. And I'm proud to be endorsed by the National Organization of Women on this issue. My position has been strong from the get-go. I'm never going to prosecute a woman or provider for having an abortion. Now, if there's a crime involved with how abortion is done, then that's a case that easily will handle the case, just like in any situation. My position has been clear from day one on that. I will never prosecute a woman or provider for having an abortion. I think the law is unjust. If we want to go back in time and figure out how we got here, is at the trial court level, the Pima County Attorney's Office didn't argue two important facts. One, the right of privacy and the right of personhood. Those facts were not argued at the lower court. And so the appellate courts could not consider those facts when they were deciding the case. And now that case has been brought back for a second try. I hope we get it right the second time. But in the meantime, you have my word that I will never prosecute a woman or a provider for having an abortion.
Well, I'm really glad to have an opportunity to clear this up. When you're the head prosecutor in Pima County and suddenly all of statewide reproductive health care has fallen on your desk, you don't have the audacity to think that you have the answers and are now suddenly a subject matter expert on reproductive health care. You have the interpersonal skills and the nationwide presence to bring in national experts out of DC and Philly who had already run the Michigan model that was so successful. And you bring that in to make sure that your state can keep reproductive health care going the entire time, and now sending us back to buy more time at the trial level. I'm thrilled that this gentleman has better ideas. I'm going to go with the nationwide, national subject matter experts every time. That's the humility of leadership.
The foundation of this next question is abortion, but this question itself is really not about abortion. In June, Governor Hobbs signed an executive order that centralizes authority over abortion-related prosecutions in the state. Her goal was to, and I'm quoting from the executive order, ensure differences in interpretation or application of the law by different county attorneys, that it does not chill, deter, or restrict access to lawful abortion care. So she has taken all this and put it under the state attorney general. Doesn't this strip away your enforcement authority, and are you comfortable with her decision, her executive order, because 12 out of the 15 county attorneys in Arizona were not? Mr. Jette.
I'm comfortable with what the Governor Hobbs and the AG Mays' decision on this. Now, if it was a Republican, that is the mindset of our elected officials to do so. Now, I agree with Hobbs, and I agree with AG Mays, Attorney General Mays, on how they're going to attack this issue. And that's what we have. We have a system of government that takes away it gives original jurisdiction to the state AG to make it consistent. And that's what we want, consistency. And I'm okay with taking that away and giving to the AG's office. I have no problem with that. I would have a problem of course, if there was a different person in charge, and I would do my best to fight that. But as we sit here now, I welcome that because we want consistency with all Pima County, with all county attorneys' offices. We want that. I have no problem with that.
Don't sit down.
Oh.
Would you be comfortable if suddenly she decided to centralize all murder cases or all drug cases or what? I mean, you answer to the voters,
Sure.
not necessarily to the governor, and you've had some of your authority taken away, and you're comfortable with that.
Well, no, we're talking about two different things here. So we're talking about an abortion issue, which is an unjust constitutional issue for the state of Arizona. We're talking about murder, which is original jurisdiction lies in Pima County. Pima County has original jurisdiction over murders, fraud, homicides of any sort, sexual assault, whatever it is. We've got original jurisdiction. The governor cannot take that power away from us. Abortion is going to be a little bit different. We've got an interpretation of the Constitution. We have something that's going to be a little bit more unique here, and the governor can take that away and give it, just like fraud. If you guys do not know this, the Attorney General's office has original jurisdiction over fraud, which means they can come into Pima County and take all fraud cases away from Pima County if they wanted to. They've got what we call original jurisdiction. Cases that matter statewide, we have a system of government that allows that. The feds have the same thing. When there's an important case, the feds can take those cases away from the state to make sure it's consistency throughout the entire 50 states. I have no problem with that model.
It's a really tough question, as you can tell, and it requires long-range thinking, and it requires a lifelong Tucsonan, like so many of you in this room who know that we have high moments out of Phoenix and the state, and we have also low moments that we've all been through. And so I value my relationship with the governor and the attorney general. I have been the #1 county attorney of the 15 to promote everything that they are doing and they are working on. And that also requires honesty of relationship. When they wanted to do this, we argued professionally. That's the truth. And I begged them to think about the long game and about, seizing some local authority and what that might mean in the long game. And so what I have said publicly over and over again is that if I ever have a referral for a prosecution regarding reproductive health care, I will voluntarily consult with the Attorney General, and I'm happy to, as I do regularly. We regularly meet, which continues to protect against everything that Mr. Scherer was just talking about over local control and authority in the long game.
So you don't think you were comfortable with it?
I will voluntarily be consulting with the Attorney General should it ever arise.
Point made. We're going to start with Ms. Conover on this one. I am currently serving on a Pima County grand jury. We've heard.
You are?
I am. Yeah. I sign what you sign.
God
God
bless you.
But thank you for the $12 a day.
Absolutely.
That's what we're getting. Okay. We've heard about 350 cases so far, and I guess about 75% of these cases in one way or another are tied to illegal drug use, vandalism, burglary, gun possession by a prohibited possessor, all of these types of things. When it comes to drug use, is the answer incarceration, rehabilitation, or something in between?
Big question. 2 minutes? It's easy to solve in 2 minutes.
Okay, give him 2.5.
No. We're not going back to the war on drugs. We're just not under my watch. We're not going back to the war on poverty. And it's been hard to hold the line during these last 2 years, right? This has been so hard with open air homelessness, with fentanyl awash in our community. But if the only thing before us is substance use disorder or mental illness, we have to responsibly and carefully divert that back to the mental health and behavioral health and drug treatment realm where it should be. Felonizing substance use disorder has gotten us nowhere fast for the most money for 40 years. Now, importantly, what we train again and again and again in the office is the ongoing threat of harm. If a person is out on the street and is assaultive, is damaging property, is a threat of harm, bring me that case every time, and that's what I teach and train with law enforcement as well. We're going after that kind of behavior, not after illness.
I agree. I think I opened up by saying we need to supercharge diversion. And I just want to give you just a fact here. Under the previous administration, there were roughly 1,500 people enrolled in Pima County Attorney's Office diversion program. 1,500. Today, there's less than 500. We need people to have treatment wraparound services, and you have to have the county attorney's office involved in that. Incarceration? Absolutely not. However, there has to be some care. We have to give them services and monitoring. Just have a catch and release program is inadequate. A catch, help, and support release program is more appropriate. And that's why diversion is so important. You've got to get people enrolled in diversion and wraparound services to lick this thing. Drug addiction is a very difficult thing to lick. And you've got to give people support. They're going to fall down. And sometimes you've got to have them into the system to force them into the treatment programs we have. There's diversion, which means, I don't know if you guys know what that means, is they're in the system, but we don't felonize the conduct. We give them in services. That's what we do at the Pima County Attorney's Office. So, thank you.
Yep, thank you. My opponent has been gone from the country in recent years, and so I am trying to have patience of just not being aware of what we're actually doing. The reason why diversion numbers are down is because we also, and with gratitude to my predecessor, launched the steps court, which is even pre-charge, because we don't want people felonized and then removed from employment and housing. We're trying to do better. We're trying to get out of the criminal justice system. And so by moving everyone through steps court, which is immediate responsive treatment, and out and diverted, of course diversion numbers are going to be lower because we have something even better and even more modern and that we're having success with. So we just have to be clear about the record.
But, hold on, I'm going to follow up with Laura Conover here. Rehabilitation has a notoriously low success rate. And
according to?
Depending on how you crunch the numbers. Is it 6 months out? Is it a year out? Is it, what is it? But you still believe that that's where the money should be going more than incarceration or, as you say, giving them a felony and hurting the rest of them.
100%.
But is it
Because
working?
let's always make sure that drug treatment and rehabilitation are always a third of the cost of incarceration. Incarceration is always going to be our most expensive option ever, which is why it's a failed policy. Anytime we disrupt and intervene, and we get someone off the streets, and we intervene, yes, we're going to have relapse, but now we're talking about people not causing other harm out to our community, and that's always going to be a better intervention. That's always going to be more successful. The idea that we can sweep the streets and just make people go away is false. They go to jail briefly, and then they come right back to the street corner in worse shape than they were before. We have to break that mental thinking. That is the old way of thinking, and we've got to move on.
Well, I appreciate the constant reference to me being out of country doing Department of Justice work overseas in the rule of law. I appreciate that because that's a capstone in my career. However, I'm well briefed on what's going on in Pima County because I've lived here for 23 years. My wife has been living here for 23 years. She's a professor at U of A. I'm well briefed on what's going on here. And that number I gave you also includes step enrollees. So we're talking about a smidgen of what it was under Ms. LaWall. A smidgen of what the enrollees are at in Pima County. So that includes step, that includes deflection, step, DTAP, diversion, the entire sequence. That includes it. The enrollees are a third of what they were before. Don't let this confuse you. Diversion's important. Mass incarceration for non-violent misdemeanor cases is bad. We all agree with that. I agree with Ms. Conover. However, you gotta get them into diversion programs. You gotta give them the STEPS programs. You gotta give them wraparound services, because they end up on the Suntran buses, they end up on the park benches, they end up in our parks. So we gotta do something to address those issues now.
This next issue, this is for you, Ms. Conover. You entered into a diversion program after a disciplinary investigation by the State Bar involving complaints against you by a former prosecutor in your office. His accusations included what he called false statements you made during your last campaign, false statements concerning employees, and failing to represent the Board of Supervisors in an ethical manner, among others. You made a statement that in part read, "We're all human beings, each one of us can learn from past events." Here's the question. You have declined to release the document outlining the agreement between you and the State Bar. How come?
I got permission and I did release the agreement within 24 hours. But one wants to get permission, right? You know, one doesn't want it. Let's back up a step. I was really proud of my record as an attorney. At some 16, 17 years, especially one who had committed to working with those suffering from mental illness, that I didn't have a single mark upon my record. And in fact, I had been teaching ethics for the State Bar for years. Once I became a candidate, the former administration filed its first bar complaint against me. After I took office, the former administration filed a second bar complaint against me, and then Mr. Berkman, who has named himself in the media my nemesis, filed 22 separate allegations with the bar that went on for 2.5 years. The bar didn't take up any of those allegations, but in the investigation, they did decide that a Facebook comment I responded to a constituent as a candidate in December of 2019 could have been more clear. As a candidate and as an official, I'm held to a higher standard. I'm happy to be a lifelong learner. They had me watch a video of a class from a couple of years ago, and when I turned in the participation certificate, they closed the entire file, which is something that the administration and my opponent who works with them, the former administration and my opponent who works closely with them all know. I'm happy to be a lifelong learner. I did turn over the agreement that I have. Mr. Berkman's the owner of the original complaint. He has not released that. His choice.
Well, the question was not for you, Mr. Jette, but you most certainly are welcome to weigh in.
Sure. I've been doing this for 17 years, and what I just heard, deminimizing a State Bar diversion program for supervision for a year, I gotta admit to you, is a bit alarming to me as a career prosecutor. It's a year-long diversion program on our top prosecutor. If this was a law enforcement officer, he'd be what we call on a Brady list. He'd never be called to court because we couldn't trust his veracity. This is an attorney who's on diversion for ethics violations. And it's not just a Facebook post. She interfered with Lewis Taylor's right to justice and his claims. We're talking about she can release the entire file if she wants to, and she doesn't. It reminds me when Tamara Malumbo, her first chief, the first African-American chief in Arizona history, had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. A non-disclosure agreement signed by her chief. So we have a transparency issue at the Pima County Attorney's Office.
Holy bananas. All of that was false. It's hard to even know where to go. I literally just said the entire file is closed and dismissed, which you know, sir. And so to continue to say that I'm on diversion for a year is false. I'm happy to admit that a Facebook comment wasn't clear enough from 2019. But to continue to use words like misconduct on social media and in the press And everything that was just said now is alarming. I'm going to be unapologetically and authentically and sincerely myself. And no matter how low this campaign gets, I'm going to just keep riding high.
Yeah, this is a question that really is going to address, we have a couple of them, office management. A lot of small business owners in Tucson and the area have been very vocal about not feeling supported by the county attorney's office when it comes to deciding which cases are prosecuted. They mentioned theft, vandalism, homeless camps on their doorsteps. They're losing customers over this. Are their concerns warranted?
Yeah. So I'll take issue just a little bit about, many small business owners, because that's such a vague and subjective phrase. We certainly have great pride that my office literally sits on the Coalition Against Retail Theft out of the Metro Chamber. We couldn't be more accessible to small business owners and their concerns. And so they know, first and foremost, that when cases rise to the felony level of when I am able to bundle repetitive thefts and repetitive criminal damage, and it gets to the felony level and it's brought to our office, we have an incredibly high charging rate between 80 and 90% and conviction rate. I must always remind that misdemeanor behavior that occurs in the city of Tucson goes to the city court and the city prosecutor. I have zero authority over that. And I've had to educate and educate and repeat and repeat and repeat that all city misdemeanors go to city court to the city prosecutor. But again, we're looking to be the best partner that we can be. We're very concerned about the condition of neighborhoods, small businesses, our street corners. And when it rises to the felony level, when it's proper, when I can properly charge it, we do so at a very, very high rate.
Hold on a second. I want to talk about a specific case since you mentioned bundling repetitive thefts, and I think you know where I'm going. We had a case down here in Cerrito where we had a shoplifter, corrections officer, probably 30 times on surveillance camera. We're talking lobster tails and steak. This is not a man who was worried about feeding his family day to day.
Ooh, that was subjective. I'm sorry, I just have to, ooh.
It's a journalism thing. It's true.
Okay.
True
Sorry, that was opinion.
Okay.
Okay.
Lobster tails? Okay. You did not bundle, you did not prosecute. You could have put these all together into a felony case. You told us that. Why didn't you?
Yes, absolutely. This was one individual person with no criminal record whatsoever who did engage in repetitive theft according to the public record. He is currently, let's take a step back. He is being held accountable for his misdemeanor behavior in the lower courts. The last that I was told, it's not my jurisdiction. It's down in the town of Saurita, right? So it's the misdemeanor behavior. Because all said and told, the food that was stolen amounted to $480, and the felony level is $1,000. It was a stretch. It would have been a huge stretch. Was it an unpopular decision? Sure. I have to make unpopular decisions all the time. That's literally the job. Facts and circumstances, $480 is not $1,000, and I have to just take the heat for it. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do the right thing every time.
Okay. Mr. Jette, to follow up on this, have you been talking to small business owners about how they feel that the office has been handling some of the cases? Are you seeing frustration? What are you hearing?
There is a lot of frustration in the business community for organized retail theft that happens. Sir, I'm answering the question. So there's a lot of organized retail theft that's happening to businesses, especially with people who come in criminal damage, people who steal inventory, the increase in security costs that happens with individuals. So it's a crime tax that every one of us is paying. And so I just want to address this Irita individual here. And it's a different optic on how you look at a case. This individual wears a badge. he wears a badge. And this becomes a public corruption-oriented case. This is a law enforcement officer that we give a lot of discretion to, a lot of authority to. And so when you commit crime after crime after crime, you could charge that as a Class 2 felony. Do you? I don't know. However, to simply say you just aggregate the number of dollar of loss is not the equation. Is what do you do with a law enforcement officer who has stolen up to 23 times? What do you do? Well, you send a signal, evidently, that we're not going to prosecute you because you wear a badge. And that is the message we have sent.
Dr. Rebet?
It's easy to trap me because I can't talk about pending investigations, so I just have to think about whether the Pima County Attorney's Office has tried an officer in an unjustified shooting once since 1989. My backbone speaks for itself.
Mr. Jette, this is for you. You believe that the Pima County Attorney's Office is suffering from, quote, a severe attrition challenge and, quote, a management crisis. What do you mean by that?
I don't think it's attrition. I think it's an exodus. For once, we got to get the right definition. I think the county attorney's office lost 12 to 16 attorneys per year. Her original leadership team, when she first came into office, all quit. The entire leadership team that she brought in all quit, including her chief, who was forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement. That is a remarkable mismanagement of the office. Currently, felony prosecutors are roughly 26, not counting misdemeanors or juveniles, 26. Pinell County is a third of the size of Pima County, a third, and they have more felony prosecutors than Pima County does. And what this means is backlog of cases, boom, 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 boom. And what has happened recently? The Supreme Court of Arizona has come down and told the courts no more continuances because we have speedy trial rights. Rule 8, both victim and defendant have speedy trial rights. And cases went from an average of 160 days to conclusion to now to over almost 285 days. That's what happens when you lose attorneys. That's what happens when you lose staff. Do I have an emergency? Absolutely. Got to put a tourniquet on this thing, bring back the office, bring back the number of prosecutors so we can address retail theft, we can address misdemeanor cases, we can address felony cases, and especially the severe violent crimes that we have out there.
Ms. Conover, why don't you just in general just deal with the manager? You've been very open to the media as far as who's come and who's left and why. Can you just address some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. But again, and I thank Mr. Jette for his service out of country. It's an honor when the Department of Justice details you to another country. But the departure of attorneys he's talking about was 3.5 years ago when I came on. As you all know, you sent me into office with a huge mandate to reform the way in which we approach criminal justice so that we stopped having the most expensive form of justice with the least results. You all sent me there to do it, and then I did it. I followed through on my promises. And certainly career prosecutors who were there under the former administration weren't all on board, and several of them left. He's right. The Star likes to be very dramatic. They used the word exodus 3.5 years ago. Since then, I've raised salaries 3 times. In the fall of 2021, I had a coup of 9 attorneys who had left forever ago, who came back for all the right reasons, with 117 years of felony trial experience. My gosh! Former Court of Appeals Judge Will Brammer is now running my appeals unit. It couldn't be better. You wouldn't believe the people who are coming in and knocking on our door who want to be there. And yes, I have the most diverse leadership team in all of Pima County, and it's worked throughout the entire agency. We didn't have a single Spanish-speaking prosecutor when I walked in the door, and we're a border county, for gosh sake. 38% of new hires were bilingual. We're doing things differently. as I promised, it's not what the former administration wanted. They're all here.
Flag.
I welcome them.
I think just this month she lost 4 prosecutors just this month of April. And so we're not talking a one-time 3.5-year thing. We're talking about a continual loss of skill and talent. And even with the pay increase, I think she wants to make this fight against Miss LaWall. I'm not Miss LaWall. I never worked for Miss LaWall. Matter of fact, there was one time in my life I wanted to run against Miss LaWall. I'm a different prosecutor than Miss LaWall. I was trained in the Department of Justice. I went overseas, and I came back, and there's a crisis. There's a crisis in the office. There's a crisis in the community, and I'm here as a global prosecutor with a different mindset. Let's rev up diversion. Let's avoid mass incarceration, but let's still hit violent and dangerous offenders. Let's make sure they get punished for what they do to victims.
I'm glad my opponent has brought up the former administration and that he campaigned for this office in 2012 as a Republican. And now he's endorsed by them. And he's used the words today, this afternoon, about bringing it all back. And we'll talk about that in our concluding statements. I don't know if 4 attorneys have left this month. I don't know if that's right. But I do know that one is going back to her home state because her brother has brain cancer. That's very, very sad. The other is being elevated from our special victims chief to the Superior Court bench. So we have to be careful about the facts we spew out. There are reasons behind everything.
Yeah, may I address
I think we're done rebutting on this one, but I do want to ask you, Ms. Conover, shouldn't you know if you've lost 4 people this month?
Dan, I have nearly 380 some employees, and I do an exit interview with all of them. What I'm saying is what is the date today? How many have left this month? It doesn't sound right, but I don't have it memorized right now. This is an 80-hour-a-week job if you're doing it right. That's what I mean by I don't have it memorized. It's the actual work of running the $42 million budget, 380 employees, that keeps you busy.
Fair enough. Thank you. Mr. Jette, I'm going to aim this one at you because this is to you from a member of the audience. It says, I understand, and it just came up, you ran for Pima County Attorney in 2012 as a Republican and registered as an independent in 2023. Are you a Democrat now? Why switch?
Well, I like the attack. So I've been a Democrat my entire life. My bona fides are pro-choice, pro-environment, universal health care. Democrat through and through. When I came into the Attorney General's office working on public corruption cases, it was advised to me to switch to independent because I had the Rio Nuevo investigation. Rio Nuevo investigation included Democrats and Republicans. So I switched to independent and been an independent the entire time because I worked on serious public corruption cases, both at the AG's office and the U.S. Attorney's office. In 2012, my house was burglarized, and I was pissed off. And I wanted to run against somebody, and I wanted to run against Miss LaWall. I didn't, but the only way I could run against Miss LaWall because the Democrats were a strong party. I calmed down, though. I calmed down, so for 3 months I had an exploratory committee. For 3 months. A.G. Mays was a Republican for years. For years. And so I love the dirt throw at me. I am a Democrat through and through. I believe in those philosophies of the Democratic Party. So let's just stop calling me a Republican. I am a Democrat through and through.
But if you register as a Republican for whatever reason, shouldn't you hold to some of the values of that party? I mean, were you just doing it to kind of game the system or be able to get onto the ballot?
It's not gaming the system. I honestly think, if you want my personal opinion, we're going to do this whole personal thing. My personal opinion, I think the county attorney's office should be nonpartisan. I think it should be nonpartisan. But I was really upset about being burglarized. I was victimized. and I want to do something about it. And I wasn't going to win the primary. I wasn't going to win the primary against Miss Lawal. Miss Lawal was a legend. She's a legend. She just had the Children Advocacy Center named after her. She's a legend in this community for 24 years. But I calmed down. I calmed down, went back to being a prosecutor and been back to work. To game the system? Absolutely not. I was upset and angry, and I calmed down. And now I'm here, came back from Pakistan, and I'm upset and angry about what's happened to Pima County, and now I'm running in the party that's my party, and I'm running for Pima County Attorney.
Okay, I'm going to try to get in two more questions before closing. This is from the audience, and I'm going to read it just how it is, and you can take it however you want. We'll start with you, Mr. Jette. Do you favor criminalizing the homeless? Could you just address the whole Pima County homeless situation in general, and then how would this office be used to deal with it?
Well, being homeless is not a crime, so the answer is no. Emphatically no. But I want to address the underlying issues, which is a lot of it for chronic homelessness is drug addiction and mental health issues. I want to address those issues. We work collaboratively with people in the community. You know, we have activists, we have non-government organizations, we have other offices, we have the City of Tucson, Board of Supervisors, we have other people that work as a task force to address this issue. And if I can assist in any way, and that way is drug treatment, diversion, rehab, wraparound services, I'm more than happy to be that individual on that task force to assist. But homelessness is not a crime. It's not a crime. We need to address it. I think it's inhumane to leave people out there, so we need to have a task force to address these issues.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Conover?
I've been happy to be working in the trenches on this the last 3.5 years. The Pima County attorney system under the Arizona State Constitution is a bit strange. You know, where many of us come from, where many of you come from, perhaps it's a DA system, where you have a district attorney who's the top prosecutor. And I am that, but I am also the county's attorney. And the whole civil law firm, many would argue righteously, is actually far more important. We're the legal advisor to every county agency and the legal advisor to the board of supervisors and the county administrator. This places me in a very unique role. And in the second and third year, I've done everything possible to sort of take advantage of that. Again, it's about style of leadership and communication and interpersonal skills. I am a county official, but my strongest primary law enforcement partner is a municipal department, the Tucson Police Department. And so through that, we have a think tank that meets regularly. We're scheduled again in about 10 days. County administrator, chair of the board, public health, Dr. Cullen, always at the table if you're ever going to get anywhere. Chief of police, mayor, city manager, and myself. That's the kind of metro collaboration that is helping us heal from COVID and from the last 2 or 3 years faster and more successful than the rest of the state and the rest of the nation. It was written in the Star as a campaign promise that fentanyl could be eliminated. We have to be so much wiser than that. We have to be data-driven. We have to work with public health. I'll come back.
Okay, Mr. Jette, you want to follow up on any of that, or are you good?
No, I just want to make sure we all understand that we don't misquote, we shouldn't misquote here. And never once has my campaign ever said we're just going to eliminate fentanyl. We need to address fentanyl and drug-induced crime with rehab and diversion. So let's just make sure we attribute quotes where they go to and not just make up certain things about other people. Let's just make sure. I'm getting attacked and misquoted here. So my issue with fentanyl is to address the epidemic and the poison that has caused so much harm, including overdose deaths in this community. Yes, we're going to fight it. Absolutely.
It's the March 2024 op-ed in the Arizona Daily Star. I try to be very, very, very careful with my words, as we discussed. You have to take a multi-pronged approach to my mind. There's no silver bullet. On the egregious end, on violent crime, we have made it so clear about accountability. We have said time and again that if you pull out a gun and you point it at another person and you pull the trigger, you are going away for as long as we can do. It is the test of the ongoing threat of harm that we teach our prosecutors again and again and again. And it's a 28-point factor when their initial appearance is 24 hours after arrest. Ongoing threat of harm. On the other end, we have to make sure that we are returning substance use disorder and mental health back to the medical and behavioral health realm, knowing that we cannot criminalize illness, that we cannot continue to be in that vicious cycle. We have to be smarter and data-driven, and this is exactly what we have been doing the last 3.5 years. We worked so hard on violent crime, and we have come so far, and now we are nimbly pivoting to the needs of the day in our neighborhoods and our streets, fleshing up the property and narcotics units to make sure that we are as responsive as possible.
You stay there for 1 second. You were at the first graduation of the Green Valley Justice Court DUI program. That is a specific. Can you speak a little bit about how those types of programs, which are tough to start, but they really can impact the community?
So for those of you not familiar, the Green Valley, so remember that a 1.1 million county, we have a courthouse and a prosecutor 2 hours and 15 minutes from downtown Tucson and Ajo. We've got a courthouse and a prosecutor, of course, here in Green Valley, right? And I'm so proud and honored to partner with Green Valley in their brand new DUI court, because they've been seeing a lot of DUI in the area, which is a concern to all of us, the safety of our roads. And I love the intervention work that they're doing, right? They had a whole group of people at that first graduation who have completely turned their lives around. This is the exact kind of intervention and disruption that we need. These are actual concrete solutions rather than just cycling people out of jail because of illness and making it worse. I certainly applaud the efforts that are going on there.
Very good, thank you. Okay, Mr. Jette,
Getting a problem. Under Miss LaWall, since we're bringing Miss LaWall into this, under Miss LaWall there are 19 community justice boards with 130 volunteers that help with juveniles who get in trouble. Today, there's 7 with 30 volunteers. And the director of that unit just quit this week. Another individual who just left that office. An individual who, like me, and like Ms. Conover, believe in restorative justice. I believe in giving people an opportunity. I believe in treatment and wraparound services. I believe in it. The difference between me and Ms. Conover is who can get it done. Who can get it done?
I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions. We could have gone 3 more hours easily. We are going to give each candidate 3 minutes here, and we're going to start with Mike Jette.
I appreciate everyone's time to spend time up here, and I did not know this was going to get on the side rails about me, about Miss LaWall. I don't endorse Miss LaWall. Miss LaWall has endorsed me, which I'm grateful. Thank you very much, because she is a career 24-year prosecutor who run the office. I appreciate that dedication to our community. But now we have a different prosecutor in mind. We want a prosecutor who understands the significance of wraparound services. A prosecutor who understands how to set up an office and hire, train, and mentor prosecutors. I've been doing that for Department of Justice for years. I've trained law enforcement officers at DEA, the FBI, HSI. I've trained all these law enforcement officers throughout the country, including overseas. I come with a breadth of experience and global experience here to bring Pima County back from where it is. When you lose significant amount of prosecutors, you didn't build an office, you literally dismantled the office. We've had a lot of crime. I like to know what the conviction rates are. I want to know what the plea deals are. I was in court the other day just watching an individual had 4 separate burglaries. All of them, class 6 opens, which means they could be designated a misdemeanor. Someone breaking into your home, into your castle, is now getting an opportunity to have a misdemeanor. To me, I think that's unheard of. Do I think there should be treatment and services? Absolutely. However, there still should be some responsibility associated with a lot of individuals. I believe in wraparound, non-violent misdemeanors, no incarceration. I don't believe in the cash bail. I don't believe in cash bail. I want to leave you with one stat. I know she doesn't think I know Pima County because I've been gone for so long, but I do know my numbers. I'm a white-collar prosecutor. I live in numbers. Miss LaWall, there's 14% African Americans in Pima County Jail. 14% of the population was African American. She got that number down to 9. And the average population in Pima County is 4. So 14 versus 4, but she got down to 9. Today, 15% of the population in Pima County Jail is African American. What are we doing? What are we doing? Visit my website, myj.com, learn a little bit more about me. And I ask for your support when it comes in July. So I appreciate you guys spending time with me. Thank you.
Ms. Conover, you get the last word.
I'm going to turn it back to you, Green Valley. We've been through an amazing 3.5 years together. And once again, I'm grateful for everything that you have given. I don't know that we all knew back in 2019, before COVID, I don't think any of us knew what was coming for us. And it wasn't just the pandemic, right? The assaults on our very democracy, on safe and fair elections, on a woman's right to decide her health care with her own doctor. So many things that you had litigated and won years ago. And instead of just being frustrated and throwing up your hands, I've watched you in the last 3.5 years take back up the cause and join us. I'm on those front lines, whether it's reproductive health care, whether it's keeping our community as safe and healthy as possible, and whether it's currently planning and pre-planning for safe elections coming into this year with local, state, and federal law enforcement. The distinction here could not be more clear. It's a very, very easy choice. We're either going to go back to the administration and the system of criminal justice that we had before, or we're going to go and continue to go forward with everything we've been building together the last 3.5 years. I would be honored to continue the work for another 4 years, to build on so much of what we have achieved together. And I'd ask you to connect with my team who's here. They're in the back. They'll be back at the table. I hope we volunteer together for my cause and for so many others in the state legislature and the Arizona Corporation Commission. And I look forward to working together. Again, rain or shine on July 30th. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, again, thank you both for being here, and I think Laura Conover was right on when she called it an 80-hour-a-week job. I bet it is, and so we thank you, and we thank you, Mr. Jette, for your all your work also. So
it's an 80-hour-a-week job, and Dan chases them around. We want to thank Dan for doing all that.